Hey all, here is a replay version of the most recent live stream Q&A on all things Social Security that occurs every Wednesday at 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So this is with all the little silences carved out of it. So I hope it's an easier listen for those who are doing the replay versus being there live. And we'd love to see you live. So feel free to pop in. Bye-bye now. Hey guys, how are you? Kevin's in the house. Well, Kevin was in the house. Kevin, is that you? He's very, very quiet in here. As you know, I'm a little early, 12:30, but I think I've published that right. Because I do have to boogie out for a hearing. So I want to make sure I have plenty of time to do what I need to do before that starts, right? So I'm just fixing my screen here. So how are you guys doing? Hi, Dimple. I see Dimple in the house. Kevin Johnson. I know it's a weird time, right? 12:30, but figured it's not that far off the mark. It's been really busy here with hearings and getting all that stuff. It's always like kind of a crazy time. It seems like we go through periods of more hearings and then a little lull of several weeks and then the next whole lot of hearings. And so many things require that you kind of hustle before a hearing because that's when all the last updates come in. That's when you feel like you can tweak your brief and make it the way you want it to be for those of us that do briefs, which we do. But it can be crazy. And then depending on people's schedules, like, you have the right staff in the right places, everyone doing their piece, it can be a little tricky. So some of the hearings, I'm just going to babble to you guys until I see a question up there. And if there ends up being no questions, we might have this super short. But one of the hearings I have, and the person may or may not pop in, I'm not sure. It's the kind of case where you have a remote DLI. You know how I religiously talk about, come on guys, don't let your DLI go into the past. Sometimes you have no choice, but sometimes you do have a choice. You just can't do your prior job, but you could do something very minimal and under SGA. That can keep your DLI always ahead of you and you never lose your chance to prove your case. But sometimes it doesn't happen because people don't know. I know sometimes with workers' comp cases, they are advised that they can't work even something minimal or it's going to affect their workers' comp case. So they don't. But then in the bigger picture, workers' comp is temporary. Even when that settlement is a temporary defined thing, whereas Social Security is forever. So it pains me when I see people losing their DLI and then it destroys their Social Security disability potential, which then destroys their Social Security retirement rate. So even if they were to be able to skim by with family help or anything, being disabled and not working, they don't know that their retirement amount is whittling away, because that amount that was estimated relied on the assumption, and you could see this in your Social Security earnings statement, where it defines, when it gives you an estimate of your retirement amount, it says this is assuming you keep working like you've been till 62. So when we don't do that, that's why that whole calculation has to be redone based on a much crappier work history than otherwise would base. It pains me. But anyway, it's the kind of cases that I suppose they're kind of like the 1%ers, maybe a 5%er. A lot of attorneys won't take them because the person can't actually do any advice that would normally be given. And that advice will still be given, but it was not going to help that first question of were they disabled back before their DLI, came to be. It's frustrating. But anyway, we did the best we can because notwithstanding, if you deserve it and you were disabled back before your DLI, hopefully it can be proven. So I feel like everyone deserves the shot. So that's where we are. Okay. I see Rolando's in the house and I think I saw a question. Dimple said, is an MRI the preferred method of imaging? I'd say as a general rule, yes, but there are some imaging that works better for certain things, which I'm not even going to have a clue on how to explain. Sometimes a CT is good. Some things will show up in x-rays. Usually for the kind of problems that we're dealing with, though, an MRI shows things that an x-ray wouldn't. Largely, we're talking about musculoskeletal issues, things like that an x-ray might not show. So you always hear me nagging about updated MRIs. I rarely say updated x-rays. You'll notice that the SSA with consultative examinations will order and pay for x-rays for people because maybe they don't see a recent one in the file of that person. They'll do it, but I don't see it being of much help. I just kicked my plug out. Pardon me, guys. I'm gonna have to go to the desk. And I don't mean that in a bad way. I'm just gonna have to take this. I have this like massive, surge protector protector device. And it's on the floor and it gets it's got plugs in it and everything. And it gets very messy, dirty. The tortoise will walk on top of it, sometimes knock things off. The tortoise in the office. But so I tried to do a thing where it could hang on this, I've got like a cave underneath my desk where my legs, can sit. And so I put a hook so I could hang it from the back of one of the holes on one of those back of those surge protectors. The plugs in it, particularly the MacBook computer, has a big bulky thing that is the plug, and those fall out between gravity and everything else. So, real no-win. It almost needs to be on a little shelf and like glued down or something, stuccoed down. So yeah, Dimple, I think MRIs are for most impairments of the musculoskeletal nature tends to be the cream of the crop. Ooh, Dimple's got an MRI for Friday. We like to hear that. You know where to report it. So Dimple's saying it's scheduled for the left side, neck, and shoulder. My issues when filing were more on the right side. So it sounds like things are getting aggravated on the other side. I wonder if that's due to existing weaknesses there, or if that's due to compensating. Sometimes, like, if we have our left side is bad, we might start using this side more, and now this side gets bad because this side was never perfect. It just didn't hurt like this side did. So we focused on the worst side, and then it makes the other side do more work. We see this a lot in legs. A limp can cause additional other problems. Sometimes someone's limping because of their back. They're favoring one side, now they're walking crooked, and now the other side. So all that kind of stuff. Kevin is pointing out that your age makes the difference. It is obviously a huge thing. Under 50 is a whole different landscape to weave your way to disabled. A much bigger burden on the claimants and the patients for the proofs to need, because you have to prove under 50 that all 12,000 rough estimate jobs that exist in substantial numbers in the economy are not doable by you due to things that you could see in the medical record, not due to you saying it. And then over 50, you get some of those carve-outs. You don't have to prove that part as long as you've proven this, that kind of thing. That's where it gets easier. Still hard, though, but easier. The 50 to 54 range is not that easy. Just because it's a slightly better rule, it is still, and we've talked about this, me and some colleagues, and probably you guys, that they're going to try to push you that you could do light work between 50 and 54 so that they don't have to award you at 50 to 54. Because they find your RFC, residual functional capacity, to be light. Oh, he can't do medium work anymore, for sure, but he can do lights, which means lifting up to 20 pounds occasionally and 10 pounds frequently. Frequently is like 6 out of 8 hours a day. So you have to be able to do light. You pretty much have to be able to lift a little bit more even than the weight of a gallon of milk, 6 to 8 hours a day. That's almost constant. It's not constant, but it's up there. So give that some thought. I don't know. I find that to be kind of heavy, particularly if one has hand or arm problems. Light is the 10 and under. Occasionally 10 pounds, but frequently weights under 10 pounds. And light also includes, and this can be a big one, so even if you could lift to 15 pounds, can you be on your feet for 6 to 8 hours also? That's another kind of requirement. Cashier is one where you don't necessarily lift a lot. Well, you might if you have to do the kitty litter over here or the piece of water over here. But let's say it's even a cashier job where you don't have to do that. They only sell little tiny things. Say a convenience store, 6 to 8 hours on your feet. Do you have back problems that would make that unbearable so that you could maybe only do 3-hour shifts, 4-hour shifts? That could be really important. Brandy is in the house. Hi, Brandy. Nice to see you. I don't know if have we met? Brandy says, how often do you hear of local DDS office collaboratively working on applications and reconsiderations, as this has been told to me twice? I don't hear of that, actually, but that doesn't mean it doesn't happen. What's peculiar to me is a DDS, I wonder if it's just worded weird. A DDS office is a state office with state employees, and they don't get the case until after the federal field office, Social Security field office, which is federal workers, have gotten all the little documents and connect the dots for an application to make sure that the application is got all the necessary parts to be a full application and all the necessary parts to be starting at the medical records gathering process office, which is the DDS. And those are the state workers that are outsourced to do the federal work. So it would be very interesting to me to see the DDS office actually working on an application per se. What they might be referring to is just they're doing the workup now that they've gotten the application. When they obviously see the application, that's where they get all the doctors they have to order the records from, all your claimed impairments, all that kind of stuff. So I don't know. That's interesting though. But I'm just wondering if it's just the verbiage simplified so that people can feel like their DDS is collaborative. It's such a kind, sweet word. Doesn't really mean much, but not in this vein, maybe. I don't know. Could it be also that DDS staff, now this I think is true, they collaborate. There could be more than 2 people working on your case up there. You have an adjudicator, but now they have, some places are having the step before the adjudicator runs with everything. So these, I think they're called like pre-development. So they have the file, it's past the muster at the field office. So all the I's are dotted, T's are crossed in terms of what is needed to have an application and make a valid application. And then it goes on to the workup. But it's sometimes waiting for an adjudicator to get to the workup, or they are staging it where we'll let this guy who's not the end adjudicator get all the stuff that can be gotten now, so that the adjudicator is spending his time adjudicating and not gathering records and, you know, calling and all that kind of stuff. I have heard of that, and I've spoken to more than one person in more than one case. I think a southern state was one of them. So I don't know if it's universal. We don't usually get that chatty about things like that, but sometimes lately I've been picking brains of DDS workers to see what's going on. So I think that, and I think that's probably a great idea. Let a person that's good at doing all the little administrative tasks, gathering records, a letter to asking for your function report. There's requests for function report and work history report. They can go out way before there's an adjudicator. Get those in the file. Boom, boom. They might need an update if it's a long time getting an adjudicator. But why have an adjudicator? I guess it's good to maybe almost like I hate to say a process, but I love processes because it keeps everything going smoothly and faster and things don't get missed. If you have a person that's an expert at knowing, well, this should all be in the file for the adjudicator. He gets them all. Adjudicator gets it, file's ready. He can do all he needs to do, including scheduling the CE if his brain is telling him this is what's needed. And then sending it to the medical expert within the SSA to get an RFC assigned to you based on the medical records once they're already in. If medical records, let's say he gets a word from you that you're going for a surgery in 2 weeks on a carpal tunnel, he will then be able to, this is the adjudicator now. He's already gotten the case, and now he's on it. He'll be like, all right, so I got to send a request in 3 weeks to try to get those carpal tunnel surgery, all that kind of stuff. If you say, I've been to the orthopedist 5 times for follow-ups in the last 6 weeks, usually you don't see him that frequent, but if you did, you could update him. And then if it's already at the adjudicator level, I believe the adjudicator is going to be doing that legwork prior to it getting there, getting the bulk of everything in, not the little tangential, updates that go on. I think that pre-development stuff sounds excellent and smart. They're working smarter, not harder, so to speak, as we always think they should be doing, and getting some processes down versus the helter-skelter it's been for so long. I think that's a really good idea. It sounds, it almost sounds like a big business giving it advice, like this is what should be done. And I wonder if that might have to do with Besignano. He was a really successful business running guy. I know one person who hated him because she worked for one of his companies and said he was mean. I think she may have lost her job or something. And I'm like, but that doesn't mean, I get why you're personally offended by him. Well, nobody likes to get laid off, and we always have resentment, but that doesn't mean he wasn't doing a good thing for the business, which is his obligation. So the same thing is here with making the Social Security Administration run well. It might mean, making 2 different avenues for the work to get done for the adjudicator. So the adjudicator can focus on your case once he gets it. It could be any of the technological developments to make things faster and speedier for the claimants to get their awards awarded. And unfortunately, if they're going to be denied, why wait a year for it if it could be smartly and appropriately done in 6 months? Then at least you know where you're slacking and you can build up that evidence. Just something to think about. Let's see. Okay, Brandy says, no, should have been local SSA office. I think she's saying that she meant that it was the local SSA office, not the DDS, doing this collaboration. Yeah, there are definitely different people that do different things, for sure, at times. Christina's in the house. Hi, Christina. How are you doing? Big Ta is in the... Kevin Johnson's in the house, and look what he did. That is really, really nice, Kevin. That's extremely generous. That's very nice. Much thanks to you. Big Ta is in the house. Big Ta says, hello, I had my hearing in October and was denied about a month later. On the appeals council, that was denied. Sorry to hear that. That's fast. Some of my appeals council things are sitting there for a year. Sent claim to federal attorney for federal appeal. I was 49 and found 4 severe impairments. Big Ta, did you finish up there someplace? I don't see it finish up. Okay. Now that you're on to federal court, Big Ta. I just want to make sure you're aware that you can file a new claim for the new period while you're fighting for the old period if you have DLI in the future. So don't forget about that. I would not blow that off because you do not know what's going to happen with the federal case. So why make it an all or nothing? At least have your plan B rolling. And then if your plan A, the appeal to federal court, prevails and you get this remanded back, both are going to merge. Now it's going to be the old plus the new. Definitely something to think about and make sure that's happening if it's appropriate. On a journey. God, see, I can't even read. When it seems like it's someone's name, I'm like, Ona? Journey. The journey says, and it's nice to meet you. I don't know if we've met before, although I've seen that picture. I just don't know if you change your name or you're a whole new person with the same picture. In recon phase, finally was scheduled for a CE mental status exam, short, and had that on Monday. Doc stated he'd write the report and send it that day. If he does, will I likely have decision soon? I'd say it's more likely than not you will have a decision soon, unless you've had some pivotal mental health or physical treatment, things that have cropped up, and your adjudicator wants to get those updates. That can sometimes slow it up. Usually they try to get all that stuff done before they send it to a CE. If they don't have to send it to a CE and they can make a decision of award without it, why pay a CE, right? Why spend the money up from the SSA funds? Then, they have to send it usually to a medical expert to get your RFC and your psychiatric RFC. And if that person's on vacation, it could take a little while. Used to always be really quick though. So unless they're on vacation or somehow bogged down, that's usually pretty fast. Nothing's ever guaranteed though, right? Ona? Randy says, yeah, but they made it sound like was collaboratively decided to deny. No, that doesn't happen at the field office. Unless the SSI, if you're doing SSI and you've already gotten, well, let's say you do SSI, you're poor enough, you filed, and it hasn't gone to DDS. Yeah, it could be that information you gave them with regard to your finances already establishes that you're not eligible for SSI because you're not poor enough. That would probably be, yeah, I would imagine. And then they don't adjudicate medical. Only when you say adjudicator role, no, they make findings based on, not on the medical at all. That's field office. Only on, does she meet the financial for SSI? If it's SSD, was she insured for the period in which she claims she was disabled? That would be a question there. Is it an adjudication? You can call it whatever you want, but it's not a medical one. It's not from the medical office who makes the medical determination once they are allowed to, because you were insured for that time period alleged. Follow? Which made me think that then wasn't reconsidered by a different person. All right, so I don't know where you're at in the process. It sounds like you were in reconsideration and went back to when it goes back to the field office after an adjudicatory denial, it's generally, what about the letter that says you're denied? When it says we are reviewing, non-medical review, when you've already been denied, it doesn't matter. So I think that's mixed messaging. We've been talking about this for about 3 years now. I will say this, guys, and I have not confirmed this 100%, but it seems very, I don't see another way. We've been talking about federal quality reviews and how, gosh, that means I was probably awarded, and then they're putting it through federal quality review to see if the state level workers actually did use the federal law when they decided it. Did they follow all the steps? Blah blah blah. Is this determination by the adjudicator that I should be awarded? Is it solid? And by and large, we tend to see it is solid and everything works out fine. I'd thrown out the question a couple times, like, well, if it's a random audit, these federal quality reviews, then shouldn't they also be auditing denials to see if the person should not have denied you? Don't have an answer. I haven't found any write-up that I could point to. But an interesting thing happened this week for a young individual, definitely one of the 1%ers, was denied in January. I've not done the appeal yet, working on it. And lo and behold, get texted a letter received the other day by the claimant saying, we have decided that you are disabled. So that suggests to me there was some sort of federal quality review of the denial on initial, and that it's therefore flipping. When I go into the electronic file, it says what I would expect had I not known this. It says he's on initial because you're on initial until you appeal it to recon. If you don't appeal it within the 60 days, that disappears and your case is gone from the electronic file because it's no longer open. So here it still says initial because we're still in that appealable time period. There's no DDE. There is a DDE in there from the denial of January. There's no reversal of that in the file. So that means that suggests to me it is whatever's going in the ERA is before the adjudicator makes the decision. Then the last thing that goes in is the DDE, and the transmittal of that, that's a disability determination explanation that says why we denied you today, January 15th, say. And then it's nothing else changes. Yeah. And then we get this, I see a copy of this letter. And I'm like, ooh. So I tried calling that particular field office, and I had to hop on a phone call that I was scheduled to take. So I couldn't stay on hold, which I would have done. I would have I'd plugged my phone, put it on the speaker, and gone about my day while I'm on hold, but I couldn't. So I couldn't get the answer. But I do want to know soon, because then we will not be filing an appeal, right? I don't want to file an appeal if this has happened. It could also be in my mailbox or arriving at my mailbox any day. So I'm excited about that too. I should have asked him, and I will when I'm done with the day here, was it CC'd to me on it? It should have been, as a matter of law, but you know, people being people and humans being humans, there can be error. So isn't that fascinating? Yeah, that would be like the first time. That will be the first time I've ever seen that happen. So I'll keep you guys posted, because that's phenomenal. The federal quality review that actually reversed an initial denial. Woo! No, we're awarding. Like, how awesome is that? I mean, it sounds right, but I've never seen it before in 21 years, the first time. And for a younger person who, you know how those are very difficult at times. So we might have another 1%er rolling out, guys. Guess what that means? Another one rolls in, thanks to everybody here and supporting that effort of a lot of the free work that has to go in. Because in this particular case, this is our second application. We already did a whole application over the last several years, initial, recon, ALJ denial, and we filed. As I always say, I'm not ditching you. If you don't ditch the process, if you're willing to keep working at it, and this is SSI, so there's no DLI to worry about, I'll stick with you. That's what I do. I don't say, probably have to waste, gazillion hours again of free work for another denial, and then maybe the third one. I don't play that. You got to do it. The person needs what they need, and with SSI, it's needy. It's needy. Anyway, so it's my privilege to do it, but yay. I will be so excited if this just happened. So excited. Brandy says, unfortunately, they told me since submitted 3373 online, they considered it was complete without other requested info. What do you mean submitted 3373 online? Do they have where you can do that? I didn't even know they did. Because we always do ours, with our client. We don't have them do it by themselves. And then we make sure it's submitted electronically, so I could see it up there. Used to be you had to fax it in, and clients sometimes mail it in. You never know if it's going to make it. Well, our clients never do that, but for pro ses and for lawyers that have their clients do that. Those numbers don't even sound right. Brandy, are you sure you got the right number? Could you be referring to submitted the 3368s online, which is, by the way, part of the application online, so that would be normal? I don't know. Hey, Limitless is in the house. Been a member for a while. Thanks all you do. Approved at 59, first time. My journey says a lot of people have the same picture. Okay, so I'm not like forgetting you or something, because there was someone else who had popped that one up there too. You guys got to be more creative. Come on. I'm just kidding. It's all good. Limitless goes on to say that it's been 3 years, no re-exam. It's been 3 years. So Limitless won back 3 years ago. No exams. I think he means no CDRs for 7 years. So he's got a MINE, M-I-N-E, medical improvement not expected type of diary date for CDRs. So good till 67. Keep your paper trail, people. Go to the doctor and listen to Miss Stephanie. There you go. Thank you, Limitless. You're the bomb. On a Journey says it took over 8 months from initial denial to get fully scheduled for CE. So you're on recon then, right, Journey? So you got denied on initial, you didn't have a CE on initial, and then you appealed for reconsideration, and they said, oh, we best get a CE if we're going to say he's not disabled, right? Brandy says, SSDI, okay, yes, insured, no RFC. Well, no. Do you know what RFC is? It's residual functional capacity, and they determine what that is. That's not something you submit. No CE, no additional CE. Well, they don't have to if your own medical records make clear that you're not disabled. So I'm only speaking generalities here, Brandy. I'm not saying that's true or not. I'm just saying how the rules work. No vocational info. That would probably not be true. They have their own vocational information within. That's at the initial and reconsideration levels. Things are a little different when you go to an ALJ. That's when he gets a vocational expert, generally. Or additional supporting evidence. Yeah, so I don't know what you did or did not do that maybe caused this. Maybe you weren't realizing. You have to submit the supporting additional evidence that they don't make it up or Now, that's your burden as a claimant to prove. You have to do that. If you tell them of a doctor that you just went to and say, please order, they will help you do that. But they otherwise can't do anything unless you're communicating with them. And that's the medical workup office, not the field office. Some people submit their medical information to the field office. I don't find that to be a very good idea. I say bring it right to the adjudicator as soon as you have one. Follow your case very well. Know where your case is at. And if it's at the adjudicator, that's who you want to send. If you have a medical report, but you want to make it clear, this is just one report from Dr. Jones. This is not all of Dr. Jones' medical records. I'm giving it to you because I have it, but I want you to order all the rest. It should be their common sense, but common sense isn't uncommon, right? So be proactive. Yeah, so Brandy confirms that she have not gone to ADJ. Do you mean ALJ, Administrative Law Judge? Or do you mean have not yet had an adjudicator? Have not gone to the DDS yet? I'm not sure which one you mean there. Brandy says, bam, good job. So needed for younger 1%. I know. I wish there were more people that took them on. We always have a waiting list. It's a little heartbreaking there. Brandy, yep, online submission. Did you get to the part, Brandy, with the online submission, guys? You have the first part, you hit submit, and then it immediately pulls you into the part where you put in your medical doctors and your impairments again. Did you get to that part and put in all your medical doctors, all their contact information, phone numbers, first date, last date, any tests they ordered, any medications they prescribed? Did you get to that part? That's part of the application. Technically, this is the part that's really a little disturbing to me. Technically, it's not the application. It's the post-application information before it goes to adjudicator. I kind of wish they didn't do that, because I had a case this week where we did the first part of the application, but we never hit submit because we're still getting all the other things kind of organized and kind of strategizing. So it's like we never even hit submit on the part 1 of the application, which is just, who are you? Are you married? Who was your last job? Like some basics. It's real quick, but the client got a letter saying we received your application. And I want to be like, no, we never hit submit, but it is what it is. I'll be going back in there. We have a workshop scheduled to finish up the rest of it and then hit the click and that's submit. But that's been like that forever. I mean, in fact, it used to be as soon as you got to the first part, they'd start banging out letters to the claimant saying, you started an application, but you didn't finish. And it's like, dude, you have 6 months. So leave him alone. He's getting to it. He needs a couple days to get more, whatever it is, because there is a 6-month protective filing. Why are you bugging him? I could understand a little text saying, hey, just so you know, you started an application. We just want to make sure you don't forget. That's fine. But when they start pressuring them to get it done faster and faster, a lot of people get a little stressed out. And for a lot of people, putting it all together is stressful in and of itself. They're afraid of forgetting something, afraid of miswording something, etc. So I don't think they really need that kind of letter in the mail. And plus, it costs money. Sorry. But you know me, I'm like, don't be spending those SS funds on your laziness. You know what I mean? Don't do that. Mail and letters and print and ink and stamps and mailroom dudes hours. Yeah, I don't know where you're at, Brandy. And sent other by mail and wasn't updated yet. Yeah, well, that was a mistake right there. Why are you sending stuff by mail? Come on, you really need to use the technology, or you're going to find mail people lose things. Mailman loses things. There's so many things that go awry. Even a fax, I think, is better, because at least a fax, you get a fax confirmation. Unless you're sending everything by FedEx or UPS when you mail. You can do certified return receipt too, but honestly, still the US mail is probably the weakest. I hate to say it, but it's just not the best. I know there's a thing where, I always say to make it, you can UPS at FedEx, or if you're going to use US mail, certified return receipt with the green card, the whole 9 yards. Might cost you $10, but that's your choice, Dimple. Well, I am so glad you found me. Oh, did I meet you doing a duo with Jonathan? Is that how that happened? Yeah, it might have been. Yeah, thank you, Dimple. Yeah, I haven't talked to him in a while. I've been in a couple network groups with him. A bunch of lawyers, we all video, and it's not SSD lawyers. There's 3 of us that are SSD lawyers, and the rest are everything else. So we're kind of in a little niche of our own, but yeah, I have to reach out to him. On a Journey says, yes, I'm on recon right now for SSI. Correct, no CE on initial. Okay. Treat. Journey, you got a treat. Hey, John BT's in the house. Hi there, John. Brandy, there is never sorries. Don't you worry about it. No worries whatsoever. No apologies. Hello, Stephanie in chat. Hello, KU Thunder. 3373 online submission. How interesting. I don't think we'll ever use that. We do the fillable paper version and we upload it to the portal. The only reason for us, when we help the person prepare it, it happens over the course of sometimes several meetings, because what's in the 3373, if we see something conflicting in the application or that's less clear, we might bring it up and be like, so all this stuff is done in a really kind of probably unique way at our place where we kind of make sure everything kind of jives. We have all that information before we even submit the application so that we know what did they say on the kind of questions that were about what is going to later be a 3373. Journey says, I've used fax because of the confirmation, but I started using the online upload form files feature. Yes, I think that's good too. And then just make sure you get a screenshot or whatever you need of the confirmation that it's up there. So no one can ever say, you never sent it. Yes, I did. And here's a screenshot. Just because your system bleeped it out or whatever, you know? So I think that's great. Journey's bringing up a good point, guys. You have SSA online account. At some point, you can upload medical records if you have a claim. I'm not sure what else, Journey. Can you upload if you did a function report on paper and you had it scanned into your computer or your phone, could you then upload it as well? Just curious, because that beats fax for sure. Dimple says, I don't understand why more info can't be submitted online, but who am I? I know, me too, right? I don't know what the limits are from your perspective, guys, when you go into your SSA accounts. And when it's uploaded, do they give you, if you don't have a claim pending, can you upload anything? I would think not. I think you can go into links about uploading, updating your banking information or your address. But if you don't have a claim, there's no paperwork due. So I'm wondering if they don't have that option. Because then they'd just be bombarded by people sending them silly stuff. You know what I mean? But once you have a claim pending, Dimple, I'm curious, does it say you can only do medical evidence? What does it say? Yeah, I don't know. I don't have access to that. I don't have a claim myself, so obviously I can't look at my own file for that. Brandy says, amen, agree. There you go. Oh, Dimple's saying, yes, it was a duo with Jonathan on his channel. On occasion, hasn't been in a while. It's been a few months. I will guest up with Jonathan. He's done it on my channel too. We've just both been so very busy trying to implement things for the betterment of our claimants and the practice in general. I'm sure he's as busy as I am. Plus, he's got those adorable little grandbabies that live right down the street. They're really close. Awesome family situation. I would love to have that with my family one day when my kids grow up and have kids. If I'm not, 6 feet under by then, since I did start a little late. Hi, Aurelius. Nice to see you again. Applying for SSDI is frustrating. This process should not be so tedious. It's almost like a necessary evil, unfortunately, Aurelius, because if it wasn't so meticulous, even though it's far from perfect, it would not exist anymore. It's just a fact like gravity. If it wasn't so demanding and particular that you have to cross all the I's and all the T's, think about all the fraud that would take place, right? I mean, it's not fun to think about, but sorry, I keep this on because I get cold. It almost has to be, or else we know what people do when something is too easy. All the people that don't deserve and don't meet the criteria go and claim they do, and then they walk out with the treasure trove, and then everyone who should be getting it, there's nothing left for. So it's just a fact. It's a fact of, what do I say? The human element. Statistically speaking, there's always going to be bad actors. It doesn't matter what side of the fence you're on. It doesn't matter. There's always going to be humans who are bad, that behave badly. Maybe I shouldn't say they're bad, although, quite frankly, I think they're bad. But behave badly, make unethical choices, steal, cheat, etc. We're never going to wish it away. We're never going to hug it away. It is the way it is. So you have to have hard guardrails. And that's where I think this all kind of stems from. Okay, Thunder. Do I know you? Or maybe not. Nipples is the same here with Jonathan. So Brandy's saying you can upload about anything. Now, Brandy, is it true that you can only upload once you have a pending claim? If anybody here doesn't have a claim yet and is thinking about having a claim, if you want to do the experiment of going into your SSA.gov file, which you're going to need to do anyway when you decide to have a claim, and poke around and see if there's anything about uploading documents. I'm going to guess there's not, but I have no reason to say that other than that just seems common sense to me. But we know common sense isn't so common, so maybe you can. I'm assuming it's once you have a claim, it opens the door. Definitely, I know you can upload evidence. I'm guessing you could probably upload functional, anything that the adjudicator would need from you. Even if you wanted to do a letter saying, hey, by the way, adjudicator, here are the doctors I saw in the last month with their addresses and phones. Can you please order these records? And maybe a little line about what they travel. We send those all the time. I have some clients who are very good about A, treating, following up, and B, reporting it in the area they're supposed to report it in. And they're the ones that get the most attention because they give us the most to work on. It's great. And they're the ones that I see winding out of the system faster. The ones that kind of sit back and just like, I don't know, take a vacation from their claim. For the ones that I have for like years. It is what it is. People do their lives the way they can, the way they deem fit and all that. Brandy says that yes, you have to have claim pending. I did online initial filing, went to another state. I went to another state. Is it a nearby state? Is it like, are you near a border? Like, got it. I know that the field offices have people in other states because they are the closest one to that person. Because I live on a border, so some of my closer people are, like, let's say my close Jersey people that are close to my border. They're actually, their field office is Easton, PA. So that part, but I never actually saw the DDS be assigned to another state unless it's a support group that's helping the various ones. And then it can be, it's shuffled out. That's not unusual at all. And then, of course, if it's a person above a certain age, they have certain specialty offices that handle some of the older people. And that could be out of New York or wherever, Brandy says you can do, I think you can do all, maybe. I'll email you screenshots, can do medical, financial, etc. Perfect. And there's that, and again, that's only when it's up to the adjudicator office, the DDS, Brandy, do you think? Or will the SSA field office little people down the street see it too? Meow's in the house. Good to see you again. I received my fully favorable decision in the mail. Okay, that's awesome. First, how do I find out when my CDR is? If it's not mentioned in the decision, sometimes the judge will say, I recommend. He doesn't make the decision on the CDR timing, but he recommends, I think. Then usually they'll accept that. If not, you can call your field office. Second, am I considered totally and permanently disabled if I have a CDR? No, we are never totally and permanently disabled. That's not terminology for the SSA world. Because number one, when you're found disabled under the SSA definitions, you're not necessarily in a bed, on oxygen tank, in a bed, in a coma, right? You can definitely be a viable, productive person. You just can't work full time at any job that exists in substantial numbers in the economy. So it doesn't mean you are totally disabled. You're just disabled enough. And permanently, no, I'll say that also, no, because that is why they have CDRs, because this might not be forever, or it may be, but they have to check to see if you're still disabled. Disability is, if you're going to get technical about it, it's a month by month thing. It's just not checked every month. That's what the CDRs are for. But you are, eligible for a payment so long as you meet the rules every month. And if you've been found disabled, they're presuming you meet the rules all the way through your diary date for a CDR, and they don't bug you, but you have a duty to do certain things, such as report if you start work, because that's a sign that they need to check into things. And if you don't report it, the IRS will do it for you. And that doesn't look so good. So I always say, send them a letter, do the fax, do it up in the portal, take a picture that you got it there, whatever the case may be that you can, to report these things in a message or a note, and just say, I started a job, I'm only making $500 a month. I'm working 2 hours a week, 5 hours a week, or whatever the case may be. I'm making this much per hour, and I don't expect that to change anytime soon. And as long as it doesn't change, I would just submit that once, and then can they drop the ball and do nothing with it? Absolutely. But at least you have proof that you did it. On a Journey says, I just logged in to look. Option 1, SSA form. What SSA form? That doesn't tell me anything. Submitting any SSA form. Okay. Now you have a current case pending, Journey, right? So this doesn't answer the question of a person who does not have one pending yet. That's the one I'm curious about. 2, other documents like proof of employment, etc. Awesome. And then you go back to 1, it says SSA forms are available, like 3370. Are those the ones that, so you're saying those are online, so you can do the 3373 from that vantage point? Does it take you to a page and you can fill in all the questions for the 3373? I wonder. Or is it saying you can print these out and then get them back to us by uploading or whatever? I'm curious. 73. I would suggest you don't do it all in one feeling pressured situation. It takes a lot of forethought, guys. Quickly and loosely done 3373s, which, by the way, is the function report, guys, for anyone who doesn't know the numbers, and I wouldn't expect you to. That's something that you don't really want to do fly by night, in my opinion. So just saying. Dimple says, I was wanting to know what I needed. I had submitted my husband's SSDI and started discovering everything that I should have done after the fact. The local attorneys here required 2 denials. We discussed why they require that, right? So less work, more cha-ching. Thank you, Brandy. Brandy says she sent screenshots. I will not probably be able to go through them today. I have a hearing this afternoon, and I did get my other deadline that was due by midnight already done this morning. So that was awesome. I'm feeling very positive about that. It was a sped up process. Everything went faster. Not that you ever want to be the last day on something, but sometimes when you're being very anal about it and trying to get it perfect, it just does. Meow says, I do have one last question. If I make $100 on eBay, so do I need to notify SSA regularly, or do they not care about a small amount? I'm going to say that that's probably so puny. By the way, when you make $100 on eBay, if you're referring to your revenue from eBay, what is your cost of goods sold? If you had something that was the value of it was worth $50, let's say you bought it the day before. Are you reselling, by the way? That's almost going to be like self-employment versus taking one of your, I have a collector's item and I just want to get some cash and declutter. Then that's selling. That's not work activity per se. It's selling your property. So it really depends on the extent to which you're doing things. And if you're buying things to then sell them as a reseller, none of which has to be fatal, by the way. The latter, being a reseller, is work activity, though. And you would need to show them that you're making less than SGA as a net, because self-employment can be netted, and that your hours are very minimal. I always try to give the gauge of less than 45 hours a month. That's like 10 hours a week. I did math right. I think that's the safest area today. And of course, if you're saying I'm computer illiterate, selling on eBay is going to shoot that down in New York minute, and now you're going to lose credibility. So always be careful not to misspeak, not to assert things that are not accurate. Brandy says 5.5 hours from me. What was that in response to, Brandy? I tried to send to your email, but kicked it back and said email under maintenance. What email did you use? Because my email's, I'm going to go look at it right now. Nope, I got an email. Oh, I think this is probably you. Oh, yeah, I did get something from you, but you went to the website. Please don't go to the website. I hate that website. I'm so sorry. But like, I'm trying to get that all disconnected. I want the contact form to just go to email. None of this GoDaddy conversations and all this stuff. It just drives me nuts. I don't know. It's just hard to get back to. So I think you're good. It looks like something came. I don't know if this got attachments, but I'll see. Don't worry. We can definitely respond back, and you're probably going to get it through. I guess I just got to go and pretend to be a client and play with that thing because I don't like it. So I want to see what you guys see. Remy's talking about the VA world. VA world. What is VA world? The Veterans Affairs? Veterans Administration? Are you a vet? Hi, Stephanie. Haven't been here in a while. Hi, Suze. I hope all is well. Yes, everything's well. Thank you. Can you share thoughts on CDR for those over 60? Nothing noted on OTR decision 1 year ago. So you won at around 60, and you want to know about CDR. I do have some videos on that. It really depends on what your impairments were. If you just had, it really depends on your vocational profile and your impairments. So I can't really, in general, is there more cases that are never going to be CDR'd at 60 and above? Yes, that's a fact. For instance, all the 60-year-olds that win at 60 and have medical improvement not expected, their CDR date is when they're 67 and they're already on retirement. So it's just going to be a moot point. But that's, and I will also say the improvement would probably have to be notable, the medical improvement, for someone, a adjudicator, to say, well, that 6-year-old can now go back to doing one of the jobs that doesn't get excluded under the grids. You know, like that's a significant improvement. So does it happen? Yes. I don't think it's that common. Or if there is a CDR because they're on a 3-year, and that could be, it might just be one of those quickie ones, or it might be bypassed altogether. Sally says, what happens if SSD finds out that a person has been working for 5 years and the SSDI found out through the IRS portal? Well, were they working SGA or under SGA? They're going to give the person an opportunity. This is what I've seen. People who have forgotten to tell them, and that happens. Some people just don't read the rules, right? I mean, if they were working part-time under the table, and even if they're working over SGA, the SSA very nicely says, hey, we see here you've been working. If it's through an employer, they're going to give them an 821 form. If it's self-employed, they're going to give them an 820 form and let them explain how many hours were you working, what was your duties, how much did you make? And they're going to ask you, and were there any impairment-related work expenses that would maybe, even if you did work over SGA, could maybe reduce it down below so that you're not going to lose your SSD status. So they give you all the opportunity to show that it's even though you should have reported it, that's a technical violation of sorts. It's not like a disability crushing one if your goods hold up. So those forms give you the opportunity to show what your work was and was not. Was it SGA inactivity? Was it like, let's say you're self-employed and you're like, I'm self-employed, I only made 10,000 a year, and I was only working like 35 hours a week. Bing, bing, bing. That's probably going to be SGA. 35 is close to full time, and honestly, because you're self-employed, they know that so much more may be maybe not disclosed. So they want to know, the monies might not be showing what you're all doing. So they want to know the details, but you have the full opportunity to show that, yeah, I forgot to tell you I was working, or I did send in a letter. I'm sorry you lost it, and I've just been doing the same thing. And here's what I make. And oh, I can write off impairment related work expenses if I'm over SGA accidentally. Great. Here's my co-pays from my pain medications that I take to be able to do that work. There's a lot of weeds in what I just said, guys, but I think it's a big mistake if you don't tell them. I think everybody should tell them and put it on paper. Expect to have to do an 820 or an 821. Better to do it early on. Not only that, know what is SGA and what the rules are before you start to work while you're on SSD or SSI. Really, really important, guys. You do not want to be hung up with an overpayment. And you don't want to lose your benefits, and you don't have to. If you are still medically as troubled as you were before, you don't have to if you do it right. Okay, on a journey is clarifying. The online, I think what you're saying is you can upload the 3373 and get it from them, but it's not where you're filling it out online. You're getting a copy of it and filling it out yourself. That's to upload an already completed and scanned in document PDF. Okay, I think. And the 3373 is exhausting. I said, take your time. That's why we get it from we get the questions that are going to go in that ultimate 3373. We get it with a bunch of other questions that we think are important in our intake, like early on, so that by the time the SSA demands the DDS, now that it's at the DDS, demands the function report, it's already been finalized, ready to go, boom, boom, or 2 seconds away from it with a quick clarifying question. That was something we changed maybe 10 years ago. Because claimants are panicking. They got 10 days to get in a function report, and I need to look at it. How is that going to happen in 10 days? They didn't even get it till day 7, So it just was something we did. It was a process change, and it might be the single most beneficial one that we made a long time ago. 10 years ago, yeah. Maybe even more. No, probably about that. So Brandy's clarifying, no, you can submit it and print it. Okay. Is it a fillable online that you could submit it without printing it? The 3373? That's what I was kind of curious about. Like, do they have like kind of like the application? You submit it online, whether you print out your answers or not, you submit the answers. And by the way, you guys always keep a copy of your answers on your 3373, your function report. Never send in the original if you're sending a hard copy. And because you are going to rely on that when you're answering questions. You're going to want to know what you said, what's in your function report. Particularly if you've got to do a second one, you want to know, what did I say before? Has that gotten worse? Gives you a good perspective of whether things are getting worse. Things are improving. Things you may have forgotten to tell them the first time around. Happens all the time. Hooking for hounds. What does that mean? Hooking for hounds. See your doggy picture. Very cool. Hooking says you can submit any type of documents on SSA. My son had to submit his citizenship online. Okay, that's good. And that's citizenship. Did he have a claim or no? He was just, what was he doing? Was there not, you know what I'm saying? Like, was there a Presitella says my status just changed to step 4. Does that mean I passed the medical requirement to meet? No. Well, it depends what step 4 you're talking about. If you're talking about the DDS, the sequential evaluation process, no. If you're talking about you got a little message from the field office in your SSA account that says you are now on step 4, yes, that's a whole different step system. They don't really quantify it. It's very vague and nebulous, and I think unfortunately they even bother, because it just confuses people, like it's confusing you right now. Usually that means it's back to the field office for them to then process whatever that determination was made at the DDS and either pump out a denial letter or pump out an award letter. So that's how unclear that step 4 is. Yes, I think you could call SSA and find out, but you're going to know soon enough one way or the other, so you might not want to bother. Adam's in the house. Hi, Adam. Presitella says, I also only qualify for insurance, not SSI. Okay. That means when you say insurance, you mean the Social Security Disability Insurance that you worked hard for and paid for, and not SSI because you have too much income or countable resources. Would that be correct, Presitella? You're not poor enough for SSI, but you are disabled, and therefore you're filing for SSD. Does that make sense? Am I saying that right? Am I interpreting that correctly? She says, I'm still not clear if approved when I'd be eligible for Medicare. It depends on when they decide. If they decide you were disabled, as of what date did they find that you were disabled? Not when you applied, blah, blah. When were you disabled? After that point, at what point will you have received the equivalent of 24 months of benefits, monthly payment benefits? At that 24-month mark is when you become eligible for SSD, like the following month. So that's all stuff you can't really speculate on now because you don't know if you're going to win as of what date. And you could have, if it's old and you applied a long time ago and you've got 3 years of back benefits being paid for you, you will already be eligible for Medicare once you find out you win. That's always very nice. If you filed a year ago and they say you were indeed disabled, the date you said you were disabled 18 months ago, then you're going to have a few months left to still get the monthly payments prospectively now that you've won, because those back benefits will not cover that 24 months of months you will have had to have received in order to be eligible for Medicare. So you'll have a few more months of collecting benefits to get up to that 24, and then you will be eligible for Medicare. On a Journey's laughing. What did I say? I forget, because I'm always laughing about something. Right now says, I asked about the totally and permanently disabled because things as student loans, property taxes, etc., heard it that way for waivers forgiveness. So I don't know if I complete these forms or not. Those forms would be the forms you have to do for those particular programs. And I do know, in a vague kind of way, and having been a victim of school loans for a very long time and paid hundreds of thousands of dollars and living like a pauper to pay them in my earlier years, big time. Student loan, I want to say they want to know what your designated diary is. Is it mine? Medical improvement not expected. I don't know if they do it for the other ones, but you could find this out. I wonder if I even have an old video on it. If not, I should probably do one. Because my heart goes out to people with student loans, particularly the ones that are like, no, I'm not going to force my neighbors to pay my student loans for me. It should be the lenders and the schools that have to pay the overreaching school loans, in my opinion, because they manipulated. But anyway, the taxpayer shouldn't pay it. Yeah, you're going to want to get. It's not hurtful for you to find out if you are mine, medical improvement not expected. If you are, I bet you that works for all these things. Is my guess. I know it will work for student loans. Property tax is going to be individual by your local government, probably. Local and or state or county. But by all means, if I was disabled and I had those bills, I'd be on that. That would be my mission. Lost signal. John, you said lost signal. You didn't mean me, did you? I'm still here. No one's saying, I can't hear you. Because that's usually what happens. Remember last week? Boing. Randy says, agree. Get the local high school to help you create a new website. They do. Heck no. I love my website and it's encrypted. It's not cheap. I don't like the fact that, and I wrote to them, big company, you all know it, because I'm like, I just want that conversation thing turned off. I don't want that feature. Oh, it's free. I don't care. I don't want it. Just because it's free doesn't mean I want it. Yeah, no, that's just sweet though. I appreciate the kids and their tech savviness. That's not what I'm looking to do, actually. I like simple is better. I just don't like that the company has that and they thought it was such a great thing. To me, it's not. And I could be wrong. I'm like an old dog, so when it's hard to make change in some ways. I mean, some people say, what are you're kidding? You do all this. It's true though. Like, I will do little changes that make things run smoother, but I have to do them incrementally in practice. And the things that I don't have to do a lot of, I have to relearn it every time I do it. Fortunately, doesn't have to do with client work, obviously, because I'm doing that every day. But I think I mentioned this in a prior video. When we have to report our availability to the hearing entities, the powers that be about ALJ hearings, and I do all over the country, hear the dogs, because I do all over the country, I have 10 regions to deal with. And it used to be you had to send 10 different calendars out, make sure none of them overlap, and make sure each one is done in the time zone that it exists in, not my time zone. I would spend every month, probably a day or a half day, totally doing that. In fact, it was because I'd have to relearn it. So then I would all right, I'm going to do 4 months in this sitting because that one is 4 months. I don't have to relearn it because just, learning my own calendaring system that I created to get where I could boom, 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 and then they did this thing through the online and solved the problem. And I'll take it. So even though I spent a lot of time creating the process, now that they finally did it this way, I was so grateful. I'll take a better process anyway that makes it cognitively easier, because really I want to keep my brains on my client work, not on the administrative stuff. It's a real pain in the rear. Goal Serene I am receiving $375 spouse benefits. Okay, so that means your spouse probably had a pretty low primary insurance amount for Social Security. But I live in Turkey. Why I have to come to USA every 6 months for 1 month stay? Because that is the rule. And it doesn't apply to every country. I just did a consultation on this in the last 6 months. Yeah. And I did it on a particular country and citizenship for that individual. It wasn't Turkey. I could tell you that. I want to say Iceland and not Greenland. Iceland and Switzerland were involved, not Turkey. And I'm not sure if Turkey would have a different result because we do have quite kind of a different relationship maybe with Turkey. Not sure. I do consults on those though, because it takes a lot of intricate looking, reading, and figuring out and making sure. But it was where this gentleman should not be coming back every 6 months. Should not be required to. It's costly, number one. And at $375, you're spending more coming back probably than housing yourself if you don't have loved ones here than the $375 is even worth. I do consult on those. If you want to buy one, I'm not going to go spend several hours doing it otherwise, but it is something to definitely determine. And, I think just for the general reason why it has to happen, think about it. If someone never has to return and they keep collecting money indefinitely off of a Social Security record from the United States, how does the SSA confirm that they are actually still alive and that someone else isn't playing the game? And now some country like Turkey is collecting, $375 a month from the Social Security system that's supposed to be for workers here. And the person that is supposed to go for you is not even around. There's a reason why they have these rules, and it's usually because of that, something like that. You can't control fraud in other countries like you can within this country, and it's still hard enough in this country. So I know it's a pain for you, and I'm sorry that you have to come back. And it's different if you were getting like $2,000, but you're getting a very small amount. So I could get it might not be worth it, but we make the choices we do, right? Hey, Reborn Doll Mom is in the house. Woohoo! Hi, Stephanie. Thank you for the consult last week. You're welcome. Wanted to pop on and say I got the letter from my adolescent doc. Okay. I submitted my reconsideration yesterday. Portal showing sent to the DDS today. Okay, very good. Yeah. Keep that creative mind flow of how to get remote proofs, right? Remote proofs. All right. It's good to see you. Prisatella says, it says my local office is to do non-medical review. Yeah, that's what that is. That means you don't really know what the result is. You don't know if your determination from the DDS was disabled or not disabled. That's why I think it's stupid that they even sent out the message. Prisatella paid into a state pension. Awesome. That shouldn't reduce your, now that they have the, they got rid of the WEP, the windfall elimination provision. Not that it would have applied to you anyway, because you actually, well, if you paid Social Security taxes on your income, the WEP never reduced you anyway. If you didn't pay Social Security taxes, now you're actually able to get a higher Social Security amount, even on the part you didn't pay. So it was a weird little reversal of the WEP that happened in late 2024. It was a political maneuver. I didn't really agree with it. And no offense to pension earners of government things. The only part I had a problem with was that they're getting the same benefit now rate as their working people, their colleagues down the hallway getting a pension, but who actually paid Social Security on the same income. Those that didn't bother to pay it, get the same rate. I didn't like that. I didn't think that was fair. Jennifer's in the house. Hi, Stephanie. I'm trying to figure out how many months of back pay I received. My award letter says April 23rd through January 2026. Is that 33 or 34 months? I would think that is counting the April and counting the January, because it says through, but I'm not going to count them for you. But I would think you'd count both of those, the way you're wording it here. And do they say that that's when you're first due? Because that doesn't include the 5-month waiting period, right? Hopefully that's exclusive of it. That's after they've already taken those months away, earlier than, say, April through March, right? That's an excellent back benefits, though. Congratulations. Jennifer says, I'm trying to determine if what I need to pay back to long-term disability is accurate. Well, that's always fun. Well, they really do. Do you have to pay the whole thing every month, or no? Are you still collecting long-term disability, Jennifer? Or was that short-term? Or is it over? Is the bill to long-term disability a priority bill for you? Is what I'm getting at. Versus, I'm sure you have many, many other bills that you have difficulty paying, and you probably have some debts. I'm just saying, which debt holds more water? You look a little lumpy here, huh? This is actually but let's go. Grizz in the house from Montana. Hi there, fella. Guys, I'm going to blow out of here soon, just so you know. I'm going to try to go through these questions. I was going to go to 2:30, and I still could, but if it gets slow, I'm going to buck out earlier just because I had the 3 o'clock hearing, and me and my peep have some, just some extra. We talked this morning, but we might have a little bit more to talk about. Make sure we're all hooked up to our MS Teams link that they sent us, and everything's good to go. Yeah, it's okay. You can always be a little bit late. No worries. I appreciate you being here. User Wendy says, hello, I'm 57 on SSD for 24-month Medicare paperwork yesterday. I am covered policy from spouse retirement. Have it till death or divorce, LOL. But I can decline A and B. My insurance is perfect for me. I understand. And that's a decision some people make. Just know this. It is my understanding, so vet this and do your due diligence, that the insurance coverage you have from your spouse is not creditable coverage if he's not working currently to receive it. It is a retirement version. Granted, I know it probably didn't change, so I don't know why this rule is the way it is. But double check this. If you ever need to go on Medicare, the one you don't want right now because you have a wonderful one right now, then if you ever need to go on it, let's say you get divorced. I'm sure that's unlikely. You sound perfectly chipper in your marriage. If you ever had to go on it, or if you were to pass away and you lose it then, and I'm guessing it stems to you too, and that wouldn't happen, but just double check. If you ever have to go on Medicare after not accepting it because you had this other avenue, and that other avenue was not creditable coverage, like retirement insurance is not, again, I don't know why that is, then you will have a 10% premium increase when you do decide to go on Medicare. 10% on top of the regular premium for every year you didn't partake. So that tells me that if 10 years go by and then you need it, your premium, you'll pay twice the premium everyone else will pay. So just take that little bit of dangerous information, make sure it's true, it's accurate, and then just go find out, do I have this retirement health insurance until the day I die? Not just that, as long as my husband's alive collecting retirement. And then, of course, if you're not concerned about your marriage strength, which I hope you're not, then the divorce is probably not something you have to worry about. So then you decide. One other thing you might want to look at too, are you guys paying a premium for the retirement insurance? Is it more or less than per month than what your Medicare would give you? Yep, charge you. And then also, are there co-pays and deductibles that are better or worse than what Medicare would offer you? Just things to look at if you want to look at the full picture. All right. It's nice to have choices though. So I think it's good that, it's great that you have that choice. Big Ta says continued. Oops, I can't even remember what we talked about before. Big Ta. ALJ found 7 severe impairments, RFC sedentary, can't do past work. If I apply again and you got denied 4 severe impairments and he put you at sedentary, can't do past work. If I apply again this year, close to October, which would be my 50th. So you're 49. Okay, I got it. If I apply again this year, close to October, which would be my 50th birthday, do you think I would be approved? It will depend on what your new medical evidence says. So you were sedentary then, doesn't mean that you're going to be found sedentary again. You'd be at that 50 to 54. That's the weakest of the of the grids. So I can't say whether I think you'd be approved or not. Do you have proper workup? Do you do all the little things on before initial, during initial, and recon to have the strongest case, the case that you didn't quite get to before, which by the way is really normal, particularly if it's like musculoskeletal. They're almost never going to give it to you under 50. It happens, but not just for general. So I can't really speculate, but you do have an improved rule. And I know you said you were found sedentary, so you're saying, I'm going to meet that. And that they said you couldn't do your past work. It sounds like it could be promising if you do everything properly, to make sure that still holds water. Because a new adjudicator could find that, you're a little bit better off than you were. Maybe you had a surgery and it's healed better, and now maybe you could do light work, So, but overall, I'd say it's a better chance, right? I just want you to clench it. Better chance is not good enough. It says, so sorry, but I thought of one more question. If you qualify for both SSDI and SSI, do I have to spend the back pay down because of SSI? Yes, if you're going to continue to get SSI. If you're SSD, you're getting SSI and SSD for some back months. If your SSD months make you no longer get SSI because your SSD is high enough, then you don't really have to worry about that because you're not going to be getting it. You're not even going to be eligible for SSI going forward because your SSD is a big kit and caboodle. But if you're relying on both, you can't have the resources to be able to have the taxpayers provide your room and board when you have money to spend to do it yourself. That's the whole gist of the SSI rules about being needy. If you're not needy because you've got $25,000 in the bank from SSDI, then you're not needy this month for your neighbor to be supporting you, right? And that's what SSI is. Your neighbor is supporting you. You're not supporting yourself. So again, it depends on how much your SSD will be. Really, really important. It makes such a big difference. I really hope it's more than the SSI amount for you. So the SSI can be going the back way. So you don't have that thumb on the pulse of your neck at all times by the SSA, because you're asking other people to support you, right? With the SSI. So hopefully the SSI is just that waiting period, 5 months, back when you were disabled but couldn't get SSD because of the waiting period. That's the ideal situation where the SSI comes in and that your SSDI from your own work record is more than wipes that off the slate. Does that make sense? My video stopped briefly. Just had to hit play. Okay, that's Dimple. It's almost 2 o'clock. Darren says, how long does it take to get through recon? I've been in recon since October. Current lawyer is doing very little help. Aaron, you're not going to know what your lawyer is doing because he's not going to give you blow by blow. If he did that, he wouldn't be able to work in your case because he'd be too busy telling every client what we did today. So don't let the fact that you don't hear from him be a big deal. As long as you're communicating to him every time you have visits and doctors and new MRIs, new this, new that. Visits of any kind. And recon can take as long as initial. It really depends. Depends how good are your doctors about sending the records that were requested. If you're not going to doctors and you're slacking off, then it's going to go pretty fast. Boom, boom, denied again. So it really depends, Sometimes faster is not better. It's like hurry up and get denied, right? On a journey says, he's talking to Darren. I don't want to interrupt that. User Wendy says, if I'm receiving SSD and have a private disability policy, will that pay for a year, then stop, then we'll kick back in? That depends on what your policy is about. Are you asking about the details of your own LTD policy? I would have no idea. You'd have to read the policy. They're all very different. Does Social Security access the figure and cut SS? No. Social Security does not get reduced due to any private disability policy. So if you had an LTD policy that your employer bought for you in case you got disabled, SSD doesn't take away from that for the private. Your LTD policy, your contract, your agreement with them might have been, and you have to look at it to find out that if you win SSD for the same month we gave you or are going to give you LTD, we have an offset so that you don't get both. We'll give you're still going to get the full amount that LTD pays you if it's higher than SSD, but we get to take the SSD from you. You have to send it to them. They say that's your contract. Whether you're going to comply with your contract or not, that's, another whole nother issue. We have debts of all kinds. Some people pay them, some people don't. Some people bankrupt them. So it really depends, So I can't really speak to what your policy says, but I suggest you get a copy of it and you read it. And I would make sure you get a copy of it as it was initially accepted, I suppose. There's a good chance you have the offset, but it's on the LTD side. They're going to demand money from you as a creditor. They're your creditor, like your credit card companies are, like your whatever. You put your credit card companies. Let's put it that way. If they're going to want their money back, and you're going to decide if you have it or not. If you don't pay them back, and they were going to be paying you another $300 on top of your SSD every month, sometimes it's a good idea to pay them back. If you're going to be getting that $300 for the rest of your life, it might be worth it, as well as complying with your contract. Jennifer says, LTD, I'm still on. Is that through 2028? So is yours going to end in 2028? Is it end in 2028? That's only less than 2 years away, or about 2 years away, Jennifer. So how much more above your SSD amount will you be getting? Is that 2 years left of that amount very notable? Is it notable? I'm not suggesting that anybody breach a contract. If you have bills, I'm only suggesting that LTD is not necessarily more important bill than a credit card that you have or that new roof you need. I think there's a lot of thought that's got to go into it, complicated, right? Jennifer says, I have to pay most of it back. Yes, under your contract. Kind of like your credit card says you got to pay us back. Kind of like your roofing company, if you finance that, says you got to pay us back, right? And then when there's not enough money to pay everybody back, somebody has to go to the wayside. Who's it going to be, right? And then you can get bad credit and stuff. Because if it's big, they're probably going to report it to the creditor, the bureaus. It's not the end of the world. Bankruptcy is not the end of the world either. How many months would LTD be? I was approved from April 20. Well, if you're getting LTD for every single month that you're getting SSD in hindsight, then every single month is going to be offset. If you have an offset term, and going forward, there's going to be the offset. So that means that you're there. Going forward, if you're getting, say, 2,000 in SSD and they were giving you 2,300, they're only going to pay you the 300 going forward. The 2,000 is still going to come from SSD. That's not at risk. It's just where you get that little bonus from LTD going forward. If you don't pay your back bill, they're probably gonna be like, well, then we're not paying you the 300 because that's gonna go. That would make sense. I would expect that. So then you just have the 2,000 from SSD. Again, do the math. Just know what you're doing before you do it, I say. So you can weigh, it's not a crime to be unable to pay a bill. It gives you bad credit, usually. Some people don't want to be harassed and they file for bankruptcy if it's a big enough amount too. Once they file for bankruptcy, they can't be harassed anymore. So just all kinds of things to worry about and to think about. If you have a lot of debt and you've won your case, what are you gonna do now? Are you gonna give up that 70,000 in back benefits to be a happy payer? Or are you gonna be like, no, my new roof, God, my roof needs to be redone because I'm going to lose my house. My mortgage is behind. Wouldn't you pay your mortgage first? I don't know. Everyone has to answer the question for themselves. I'm just throwing it out there. Just making it so far. Well, I'm glad you're just making it. Good morning. Any advice on the appeals council? What should I do to get a fully favorable? In my packet that I submitted to OAO, I don't know what that is. I asked for a fully favorable, not a remand. Is that bad? No, it's not bad. They're just going to ignore you and they're going to do what they do. What you asked for is not going to make a difference. Now, if you presented arguments that hold water and are obvious, usually it's a remand though. But good luck. It's almost always a remand. I think we've had one that wasn't, and that's because technically what the judge found with the age change that happened at the time, they said with the age change rule, borderline age category, that person should have been awarded as of age 50. And so they gave a fully favorable on that. It's not really fully favorable. It's favorable on that. And then my guy could either appeal that still or not. And I didn't think it was a good idea to appeal. So that was my recommendation, particularly when appealing opens up a whole can of worms. And we're talking about that really difficult time between 40s and early 50s. Jennifer says, I've been on a long-term disability now since January 2023. So pretty much every month that you're getting SSD for, match them up. You'll see. Prisatella says, why is there a non-medical review if you're not approved? You should see all the videos I did on this, Prisatella. It was like headbanging since like 2023. When it first started happening, around 2023, I guess. I feel like I was talking about it late 23. It was like, oh, non-medical review. You're only going to need it if there's something to review because you had an award. And then people are getting denials. It's like, this makes no sense. So it's a dumb thing they've been doing. And I hope one day someone pays close enough attention to that. Is it the kind of thing that you want to take away from other more important things? No, but get rid of that whole stupid little messaging. Just, it might not be the most biggest priority, they're making other better strides, but I think it should be one that would really relieve a lot of people of stress. 54 in 5 months. Would applying at 55 have made a difference? Only in the sense that at 55, you can get a grid rule that it doesn't apply to you at 54 in 5 months. But some people win at 54. If you apply at 55 and you prevail, they're only going to pay you back to when you said you were disabled or when you're found disabled. Always push, like if you know in your mind that you were legally disabled in your 50s, early 50s, of course you're going to pursue that. I would, because people win them all the time. It's just a harder, you have to be a little bit more diligent. You have to be sufficiently disabled. You have to prove that you can't do late work. At 55, you don't have to prove you can't do late work, but you prove you can't do medium work. It changes. Wendy says, perfect. Yeah, do your due diligence. Okay? I'm giving you the ideas. You need to check it out. It's not through a job. It's completely private. Sounds like you bought it yourself. That is from the area where my hearing is at. I'm going to get off of here really soon. Hearing's not till 3, but let's just try to wrap through these guys, okay? Hearing time is very exciting. That's when positive things can happen. The fruition, if you will, even for the tough cases. Rob, what are the chances of a CDR after 63? As I said before, you probably weren't here, Rob, if you came in late. I think everything diminishes as you get, the chances of getting a CDR diminish as we go up. Assuming we're not doing anything like starting a job or, anything like that. As we're not triggering it ourselves, I think the chances generally go down. And if you do get one, the chance of failing it goes down too. So, you're in a definitely better place than someone in their 50s. Okay, last question. Here we go. Can I call an adjudicator? This is by Presatella. Can I call an adjudicator to tell me the decision of step 3 if I call? They're probably not going to do it. I don't think they're supposed to. They're supposed to send it down. Think about it. If they were to tell you and then it got reversed into, let's say it was a denial and they told you that, and you're mentally ill and you do something inappropriate because of what they said, and then it would have been, then it was audited and it was going to be an award. You know what I mean? And plus, I don't think they want the headache of telling anybody. Nobody likes to give bad news. So I don't think you can call. I mean, you can try, but I think it would be a very remiss adjudicator that would tell you. I know people have done it, and the adjudicator generally says, the determination's been sent to the field office. You're gonna have to call them. That kind of response, and that's appropriate. I know that's hard. They can't even tell you if you won, really, because it can get flipped on audit. So you see, they're kind of screwed. So I just say don't call them. Be patient. You've been patient this far. Continue it, and then you'll know what to do. Okay. All right, guys. That is it. Cross your fingers for me and my client on a successful hearing. A very deserving person who I want to thank very much for her support in every which way here as well. And I'm praying, and I've been praying I do this for all my clients and everybody else, but a lot of heart and soul in this one, guys. So if anyone wants to join me in that would be great. Use all the prayers we can get, right? Asking everybody. So God bless, guys. Mr. Pet Mom chimed in. I'm going to have to answer one more. Hold on. I'll get to you guys. Nobody else. If my husband and I divorce and I won't have his income to rely on, can I collect SSI along with my SSD I'm currently on? Depends how much your SSDI is, Mr. Pat. If your SSDI is more than the SSI amount, the answer would be no, because you have too much income to get SSI. Okay? If your SSDI is less than SSI, yes, they'll top it up with the rest, unless you have other income coming in from something else, whether you're working part-time, you have an annuity, grandma gives you money, whatever. Okay? All right, next, President says, can the field office tell me? Yes, I believe they probably can, but they might say it's still being reviewed. And that could be that little window. Maybe that's the time when they do see if it's going to get pulled for audit. Maybe that's what that medical review message, that is a mixed message, in my opinion, means. So again, you're gonna learn one way or the other. Just try to keep short hairs down and be patient. Wendy says, I would like to get info on a consultation. I have a few more important questions trying to get this part of life together. I understand. I will get you the link for the consultation. These are prepaid, you guys. You know how that works. Where am I? Here is the link for prepaid consultation. Christina says, she's so sweet. Please don't forget to like, share, comment, and subscribe. There you go. Do it, guys. All right. So the link for consultation, those are prepaid, guys. No ifs, ands, or buts, or anything around that. That's just the way it is. And it'll generally be Liz just making that all get arranged and all set up. So anyway, it's been good. Wednesdays are my favorite. I love you guys. Thank you so much. God bless, and wish us luck today. Bye, guys. And don't not pay attention to the 12 o'clock pre-recordeds too. They all go towards that mission. And I hope to be getting another 1%er soon. Working that down. All right. Thanks, guys. Bye-bye.